My fiance told me his bachelor party was canceled and I didn't think twice about it. I mean, why would I? We were 2 months out from the wedding and things were hectic. He said the guys couldn't get their schedules to line up, so they were just going to do a low-key dinner instead. I said okay, that's fine, whatever works. I was focused on finalizing the guest list and figuring out the seating chart drama with my mom and my aunt who haven't spoken in 7 years. I should have known something was off. Let me back up. I'm 26, she's 27, we'll call her Jane. We'd been together for 4 years, engaged for one. From the outside, we had the perfect relationship. We never really fought, we had the same stupid sense of humor, we wanted the same things out of life. A house in the suburbs, 2 kids, a dog, the whole American dream package. I thought I knew everything about her. I thought we were solid. The night of his so-called canceled bachelor party, I had my own low-key night at home. My cousin and a few of my buddies came over, we ordered pizza, played WoW Classic until like 2 in the morning. It was perfect. I was sitting there in my boxers, yelling at my screen, drinking cheap beer, thinking life was pretty damn good. My boy was supposed to be doing the same thing somewhere else, just without the fanfare. I went to bed happy that night, I fell asleep smiling. The next morning I woke up to a missed call from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemail. I figured it was spam and went about my day. I had breakfast, scrolled through my phone, saw that Jane had posted some photos from her bachelorette party the weekend before. She looked happy. All the bridesmaids were in matching sashes, holding up those penis-shaped straws, the usual stuff. I liked the photos and kept scrolling. Then my phone rang again, same number. I answered this time. Guy on the other end said his name was Derek. It took me a second to place him. He was married to one of Jane's bridesmaids, a woman named Rachel. I'd met him maybe 3 times at barbecues and holiday parties. Nice enough guy, but we weren't exactly friends. He said, "Hey man, I need to talk to you about something. It's serious." My stomach dropped. You ever get that feeling where your brain already knows what's coming before your conscious mind catches up? That was it. I stood up from my kitchen table and walked into the living room, sat down on the couch, braced myself. Derek said that at the bachelorette party something happened. He said Rachel had come home completely wrecked, crying, saying she didn't know what to do. She told him that Jane had gotten physical with the male stripper. I asked him what he meant by physical and he danced around it for a few seconds before finally saying it was a handjob. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just sat there holding the phone, staring at the blank TV screen. I asked him if he could be mistaken. I asked if maybe Rachel misinterpreted something she heard or maybe it was a joke that got taken too far. He said no. He said Rachel was 100% sure she saw it with her own eyes. She felt so guilty that she made her husband call me because she didn't have the guts to do it herself. I thanked him and hung up, and then I just sat there. I didn't know what to do, I didn't know who to call. I thought about calling Jane right then and there, but I knew if I did, I'd lose my mind. I'd say things I couldn't take back, so I did the only thing I could think of. I packed a bag, got in my car, and drove to my parents' house. They live about 40 minutes away. I told my mom I wasn't feeling well and needed to crash. She didn't push. I spent the rest of the day in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling, listening to music. The doors, opeth, stuff that matched the dark pit in my chest. I didn't sleep, I just lay there, replaying every moment of our relationship, trying to find the thing I missed, trying to figure out how the woman I was about to marry could do something like that. The next morning, I waited until noon to call my cousin. She and Jane had been friends since they were kids and she had been at the bachelorette party. If anyone could tell me what actually happened, it was her. I called her 5 times, straight to voicemail every time. Red flag number 2. I called a 6th time, she picked up but her voice was weird, tight. She asked if I was okay and I said no, I needed to know what happened at the party. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said she didn't see anything. She said she left early because she had a headache. I asked if she was lying to me. She said no, but I didn't believe her. I hung up and called Rachel's husband back. Derek picked up on the first ring. I said, I need you to tell me everything, all of it, don't leave anything out. And he did. He said Rachel had called him from the bathroom of the Airbnb they rented. She was whispering, panicking, saying Jane and the stripper had gone into a bedroom and closed the door. Rachel waited outside and listened. She heard noises. She said it went on for about 10 minutes. When Jane came out, she was fixing her dress and the stripper was zipping up his pants. Rachel confronted her right there and Jane told her to keep her mouth shut, that it was just a stupid mistake, that it didn't mean anything. Rachel didn't keep her mouth shut, she told her husband. And her husband told me. I thanked him again and hung up. Then I called Rachel directly. She answered and she was crying before I even said a word. I said, just tell me the truth, and she did. She confirmed everything. She said she was sorry, she didn't know what to do, she didn't want to ruin our wedding, but she couldn't live with the secret. I didn't yell at her. I told her I appreciated her honesty and hung up. And then I sat in my parents' guest room and stared at the wall for another 3 hours. I finally called Jane that evening. I kept my voice calm. I said, I need to see you. Can we meet at the coffee shop downtown? She said sure, sounding totally normal, asked if everything was okay. I said yeah, just want to chat about wedding stuff. She bought it. We met the next afternoon. I got there early, ordered a black coffee I didn't drink. She walked in looking beautiful, wearing a sundress, smiling. She sat down across from me and asked what was up. I said, I know what happened at your bachelorette party. Her face went white, not slowly, Instantly, like someone flipped a switch, she started crying. She said she was sorry, she didn't plan it, the stripper was aggressive, she was drunk, she didn't know what she was doing. I just listened. I didn't interrupt. I let her dig herself deeper. When she finished, I said, "You told me your bachelor party was cancelled, but I saw the photos online. Your friends posted everything. I saw the videos of you grinding on him. I saw you grab his hand and pull him into that room. That wasn't true. I hadn't seen any videos. I was bluffing, but she didn't know that. She broke down completely. She admitted to the handjob. She said it lasted maybe 30 seconds. She said she regretted it immediately. She asked if I could ever forgive her. I didn't answer. I stood up, left $20 on the table for my coffee I never touched, and walked out. I haven't spoken to her since. That was 4 days ago. I'm still at my parents' house. I've gotten about 100 texts from her, ranging from apologies to excuses to anger. Her bridesmaids have reached out too, defending her, saying it was just a stupid mistake, that I was being dramatic, that stripping it down, it was just a drunk moment before a wedding and I should let it go. But here's the thing. It wasn't just a drunk moment. It was a choice. She chose to go into that room, she chose to let him touch her, she chose to lie to me about it, and the wedding is in 2 months. I don't know if I can go through with it. The days blurred together after that. I stayed in my parents' guest room, barely eating, barely sleeping. My mom brought me sandwiches I didn't touch. My dad knocked on the door once, asked if I wanted to talk, and I said no. He nodded and left. They knew something was wrong, but they didn't push. That's how my family is. We process alone. On the 5th day, I got a text from Jane's mom. She said, "I know you're hurting, but you need to think about what you're throwing away. Jane loves you. She made a mistake. People make mistakes. Don't ruin your future over 10 seconds of stupidity." I didn't respond. That night, Jane showed up at my parents' front door. I saw her car pull into the driveway from the window. My heart started pounding. I didn't move. My mom answered the door and I heard Jane's voice, shaky, pleading. She asked to see me. My mom said I wasn't ready. Jane said she wasn't leaving until I talked to her. I sat on the bed, staring at the wall for what felt like an hour, then I walked downstairs. She was standing in the entryway, red-eyed, wearing the same sundress from the coffee shop. She looked smaller than I remembered. She said, "Please just give me 5 minutes." I said, "Okay." She told me she was sorry again. She said the stripper had been aggressive, that he'd pressured her, that she felt obligated because the bridesmaids had paid for him. She said she'd been drinking all day and wasn't thinking clearly. She said she'd do anything to make it right. She offered to go to counseling, to sign a postnup, to quit her job and move across the country if that's what I needed. I listened. And then I said, "Jane, it's not about the handjob, it's about the lie. You told me the bachelor party was cancelled. You posted photos online like nothing happened. You let me plan our wedding for 2 months while you knew what you'd done. That's not a mistake, that's a cover-up." She started crying harder. She said she was scared. She said she didn't want to lose me. I said, "You already did." She left. I closed the door and leaned against it, and I finally let myself cry, not loud. Just tears streaming down my face, silent, like the pressure had been building for a week and finally broke. The next morning, I called the venue and canceled the wedding. I told my parents I was moving out of the apartment Jane and I shared. I took a leave of absence from work. I needed to disappear for a while. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't spoken to her since. I've heard through mutual friends that she's telling people I overreacted, that it was just a handjob, that I'm throwing away a perfect relationship over nothing. But they don't know what I know. They don't know the feeling of watching the person you trusted most smile at you while hiding a knife behind her back. I'll be okay. It just takes time. That story reminds me of another one that ended up on Reddit. A woman who found out her sister had been sleeping with her ex-boyfriend, and not just any ex. The man she'd been living with for 3 years. The man she caught in her own bedroom with her sister's legs wrapped around him. Her name was something like Olivia, I think. She was 25. Her stepsister, let's call her Emily, was 23. They'd grown up together since Olivia was 4 and Emily was 3. Their parents had married when they were kids and they were close. Really close. Emily got cancer when she was 14. She was sick for 2 years. Olivia quit her extracurriculars, got a job to help with medical bills, drove Emily to appointments. She gave up dances, gave up hanging out with friends unless Emily could come too. She even threw a tantrum about quitting volleyball, but then she got over it. She did it all willingly because that's what family does. Fast forward to college. Olivia met a guy named Ben. They fell in love, moved in together after graduation, were together for 3 years. They were talking about marriage. Olivia thought she had her whole life mapped out. Then one day in July, she came home early from work. She walked into the bedroom and saw Ben on top of Emily, on their bed. In the bed Olivia had picked out with the sheets she'd bought, she broke it off immediately. Ben moved out. Emily apologized at first, said it was a one-time thing, said she was so sorry. Olivia took space. She thought Emily was giving her time to heal. Then Emily called a few weeks later and asked to meet for coffee. Olivia agreed, thinking maybe it was a real apology, maybe they could start to rebuild. Instead, Emily sat down across from her and said, "Ben and I are in love. We're together now. I'm telling you as a courtesy before we start posting photos online." Olivia didn't scream, she didn't cry. She just stood up, walked out of the restaurant, and left Emily with the bill. She didn't pay her portion. Emily later sent a Venmo request for the money. Olivia ignored it, then the parents got involved. Emily told them Olivia was being unsupportive, that she was ruining Emily's chance at happiness. Her father called Olivia to their house. He sat her down in the living room, the same living room where they decorated for Emily's cancer recovery parties, and he said, "I'm disappointed in you. Your sister went through so much. She deserves to be happy. You need to accept her relationship with Ben." Olivia stared at him. She said, "She slept with my boyfriend in my bed. You want me to just smile and be happy for them?" Her father said, "She had cancer, Olivia. She almost died. Can't you let this go?" That was when everything changed. Olivia realized her family didn't see her as a person with feelings. They saw her as a support system, a utility, someone whose only job was to make Emily's life easier. She had given up her teenage years for Emily. She had worked and driven and sacrificed. And now she was supposed to give up her boyfriend too. She went no contact with her parents and her sister. She blocked their numbers, blocked them on social media. She moved out of the city, got a new job, started over. Her father tried to reach out a few months later. He sent a long email saying he'd been wrong, that he wanted to make things right, that he'd stand her up at a restaurant as a lesson. Wait, no, that was something else. The point is, he tried to apologize, but Olivia wasn't ready. She wasn't sure she'd ever be ready. I don't know what happened after that. I hope she found peace. I hope she found people who didn't treat her like a backdrop to someone else's story, because she deserved more. I know how she feels. When you're blindsided by the people you love most, it doesn't matter how many times they say sorry. The trust is gone, and you can't build a future on a foundation of lies. I read another story that's been stuck in my head ever since. It's about a guy, let's call him Mark. He was 27, married to his husband Peter for 3 years, together for 6. Peter was 37. They had a son, Jack, who was 7 at the time. Jack was adopted after they got married, and Mark loved him like his own blood. Peter was bisexual, and he had an ex-wife named Allison. She was also 37. Mark never had a problem with that. He knew Peter's history. What he did have a problem with was Peter's family. They were homophobic as hell. They'd always tell Peter he should go back to Allison, that he'd made a mistake marrying a man. Mark tolerated it because he loved Peter and he wanted Jack to have a relationship with his grandparents. The birthday party was supposed to be simple. They drove up to Peter's hometown, rented a hotel, booked a venue for Jack's party. Mark spent the whole day setting up decorations, blowing up balloons, making sure the cake was perfect. He wanted Jack to feel special. He wanted to prove he was a good dad. The party was at Peter's parents' house. Big backyard, lots of cousins running around. Jack was having a blast. Mark was helping cut the cake when he noticed Peter and Allison weren't there. He didn't think much of it at first. Maybe they were getting drinks inside. But then he saw the front door was cracked open and he heard voices from upstairs. He walked inside, up the stairs, down the hallway. The door to Peter's old bedroom was ajar. He pushed it open. Peter and Allison were half naked, pulling each other's clothes off. Peter's hand was inside her jeans, her bra was unhooked. They hadn't heard him. Mark stood there for maybe 5 seconds. He didn't scream, he didn't cry. He just turned around, walked back down the stairs, and went back to the party. He cut the cake, he sang happy birthday. He watched Jack open presents. He smiled when relatives took photos. He kept it together because Jack's birthday was not going to be about his dad's betrayal. An hour later, Peter and Allison came back downstairs, acting like nothing had happened. Peter pulled Mark aside and said, "You shouldn't have cut the cake without me. That was disrespectful." Mark stared at him and said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." Peter went pale. He opened his mouth, closed it. Mark didn't wait. He grabbed Jack, said goodbye to no one, and drove back to the hotel. On the way, Jack asked why they were leaving early. Mark said, "Daddy's not feeling well. We're going to have a movie night at the hotel instead." Jack cheered. He didn't know anything. After Jack was asleep, Mark sat in the bathroom and cried silently into a towel. He didn't want Jack to hear. He called his best friend, told her everything. She said, "You need to leave him. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." The next morning, Peter showed up at the hotel. He knocked on the door, face tear-streaked, saying he was sorry that it was a one-time thing, that Allison had shown up unannounced and he was overwhelmed. Mark said, "You went into your old bedroom. You took off your clothes. You knew what you were doing." Peter kept apologizing. He said he would go to therapy, would cut off his family, would do anything. Mark said, "I need time." They went home. Mark slept on the couch for a week. He barely spoke to Peter. He focused on Jack, on keeping normalcy. He started looking into divorce lawyers. Then the texts started. Allison sent him messages saying she was sorry too, that it was Peter's fault, that she had initiated it. Mark ignored her. Then Allison said, "You know, my daughter is actually Peter's. I never told him." Mark's blood ran cold. Allison's daughter was 14. That meant Peter had been sleeping with Allison years into their marriage, and maybe even before. Mark confronted Peter. Peter broke down and admitted that he and Allison had been having an affair on and off for the first 2 years of his marriage to Mark. He said he stopped when they adopted Jack, but then at the party his mother had pressured him and Allison was there and he felt weak. Mark didn't believe him. He did some digging. He found old receipts, phone records, a burner phone Peter had hidden in his car. The affair hadn't stopped. It had continued up until the party. Peter had been seeing Allison whenever he visited his hometown. Their son, the one Allison had claimed was from a previous relationship, was actually Peter's biological child. Mark filed for divorce. He took Jack and moved into a new apartment. The custody battle was brutal. Peter's family tried to paint Mark as a liar, as someone who was trying to take Jack away from his real father, but the judge saw the evidence. Mark got full custody. Peter got supervised visitation. That was 6 months ago. Mark told me he still wakes up some nights wondering if he did the right thing. But then he looks at Jack, who's thriving in school, who calls him dad, and he knows he did. He lost his husband, but he saved his son. Another story that hit close to home was about a guy named Luke. He was 33, no contact with his dad for 20 years. That one started when he was 13. His dad had an affair, left his mom, and moved in with the affair partner, a woman named Jane. At first, Luke and his sister visited every weekend. His dad was still present, still tried. But then Jane got pregnant. Their half-brother was born. The visits became less frequent. His dad started missing piano recitals, softball games, birthdays. He'd say stuff like, "Your brother has a fever today, can't make it," or "Jane needs help with the baby." Luke was 16 when Jane announced she got a job offer 10 hours away. Luke and his sister begged their dad not to go. They said, "What about us? We're your kids too." Their dad said, "I need to prioritize my new family." And he moved. That was the last time Luke considered him family. He went no contact. He blocked his dad's number, refused to answer calls, didn't invite him to high school or college graduation. His sister kept in touch, but Luke was done. He avoided family events where his dad might show up, including his sister's wedding and baby showers. He built a life without him. 20 years passed. His dad moved back to their hometown. He started reaching out again, sending letters, showing up at Luke's workplace, getting his half-brother to send friend requests on social media. Luke ignored it all. Then one day, his half-brother sent a long message saying their dad was sick, that he had cancer, that he wanted to make amends before he died. Luke felt a pang of guilt, but he remembered the years of silence. He remembered being left behind. He didn't respond. His half-brother got angry. He started leaving threatening voicemails saying Luke was a monster for abandoning his dying father. He even showed up at Luke's house late one night, pounding on the door. Luke called the police. He got a restraining order. Then the final blow, Luke found out through his sister that Jane had cheated on his dad twice. One of the affairs was with her best friend's husband. His dad had known but stayed because he didn't want to lose another family. So the man who abandoned his first kids for a woman who never even loved him was now dying alone. And he wanted Luke to feel sorry for him. Luke didn't. He told me he felt something close to relief. He said, "I spent 20 years wondering if I was the bad guy. Now I know I was." That's the thing about betrayal. It never comes from strangers. It comes from the people you trust the most. The ones who are supposed to protect you. The ones who are supposed to love you. And when they break that trust, it doesn't matter how many years pass or how many apologies they offer. The damage is done. You can forgive, but you don't have to forget, and you don't have to let them back in. I thought that would be the worst of it, but then I read another story from a woman who had been through something almost identical. She was 25, her name was something like Sarah, but I'll call her Op. She had a stepsister 3 years younger who she'd grown up with since she was 4. They were extremely close. The stepsister got cancer when she was 14. It was a brutal 2 years. Op had to quit her volleyball team, her extracurriculars, everything. She got a job to help pay the medical bills. She drove her sister to appointments. She didn't go to school dances because any fun activity had to include her sister. She did it willingly, mostly. She had one breakdown about volleyball, but that was it. She thought she was doing the right thing. She thought they were family. She went to college, met a guy named Ben. They fell in love. After graduation, they moved in together. They were serious. 3 years into living together, she walked into her bedroom one afternoon and saw Ben fucking her sister on their bed. She broke it off. Ben moved out. The sister apologized at first, but then backed off. Op thought she was giving her space. But then the sister called a week later and asked to meet at a restaurant. They sat down and the sister said she and Ben were in love. They were telling her as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. Op was so stunned she stood up and left the restaurant. She didn't pay her portion of the bill. The sister later Venmoed her, demanding the money for the food she didn't eat. Then the parents got involved. They called Op to their house and told her they were disappointed in her for not supporting her sister's relationship. They brought up the cancer, how the sister had suffered, how Op needed to be the bigger person. Op tried to explain that she had been betrayed by 2 people she trusted, but her parents said she was being selfish. Her dad even made plans to meet her for lunch to talk things out, but he never showed. He stood her up. He never even called to say he wasn't coming. Op sat there alone for an hour, staring at an empty chair. She went no contact with all of them. She moved out of state, changed her number. But her sister wouldn't let it go. She kept reaching out, sending long texts about how she had almost died when she was a teenager, how she deserved happiness, how Op was being cruel. She even emailed Op's boss trying to get her fired. The brother-in-law of the sister's friend sent a letter to Op's apartment telling her she was a terrible person for abandoning her cancer-surviving sister. Op didn't respond. She went to therapy. She started dating someone new, a guy named Mike. He was kind, patient, didn't push. She told him everything on their 3rd date. He said, "That sounds like a lot. I'm sorry that happened to you." That was all. She cried in his car. They've been together for 2 years now. She got a promotion at work. She bought a house. She's happy. Then about a year after going no contact, her sister found out she was pregnant. She sent a message saying she wanted Op to be an aunt to her and Ben's baby. She said it would be healing for the family. Op deleted the message without replying. Her sister then sent a long email to their extended family claiming Op had been abusive during the cancer years, that she had resented her the whole time. Op's aunt called her crying, asking if it was true. Op said, "I quit volleyball for her. I worked 40 hours a week to pay her hospital bills. I never went to a single dance. I did everything they asked, and she fucked my boyfriend in my bed." The aunt was quiet for a long time, then she said, "I believe you." Op never heard from her sister again. The last she checked, the sister and Ben had broken up anyway. Ben had cheated on her with a coworker. Karma, maybe. Op said she doesn't feel satisfaction. She just feels empty when she thinks about it. But she's glad she walked away. That story stuck with me because of how the family weaponized the sister's illness. They used it as a shield for every crappy behavior. It's not an excuse. Trauma doesn't give you permission to destroy someone else's life. The sister was sick, but that didn't make her entitled to Op's boyfriend. And the parents enabled it because it was easier than dealing with the truth. Another story I read from a guy named Jake. He was 26, engaged to a woman named Jane. They'd been together for 4 years. They had clear boundaries, no sexual contact with anyone else, period. Jane went to a bachelorette party with her friends. Jake had his own party at home with some buddies playing WoW Classic. It was a great day. He was happy. The next morning, he got a phone call from one of the bridesmaids' husbands. The guy said he had seen something at the party that made him think Jane had been sexual with a stripper. He wouldn't say exactly, but he implied it was a handjob. He said he was 100% sure. Jake felt his world collapse. He hung up and just stared at the wall. He had been so excited for their wedding, and now this. He tried to calm down. He waited until noon the next day to call his cousin, who had also been at the party. His cousin didn't answer the first 5 times, red flags everywhere. When he finally got through, his cousin said she couldn't talk about it. She said she had to protect Jane. That was all the confirmation Jake needed. He confronted Jane over the phone. She laughed at first, said he was being paranoid. Then she said, "It was nothing. I was just drunk. It didn't mean anything." Jake didn't buy it. He asked her to describe exactly what happened. She said she gave the stripper a handjob for about 10 seconds because her friends dared her to. She said she felt pressured. She said she regretted it. Jake said, "You could have said no. You're 27 years old. You can say no." She started crying, said she was sorry, that she loved him, that she would do anything to make it right. But Jake couldn't get past it. He kept thinking about her hand on another person. He kept thinking about the bachelorette party, how it was supposed to be a celebration of their love, and instead she used it as a chance to cheat. He called off the engagement. He told her parents, who begged him to reconsider. Jane's mom said it was just a mistake. She was drunk. "She loves you," Jake said. "If she loved me, she wouldn't have done it." He moved out of their shared apartment. He stopped talking to her. She sent him letters, gifts, even showed up at his workplace. He had to get a restraining order. It took him a year to feel normal again. He went to therapy. He started running. He began dating again slowly. He learned that trust is fragile. Once broken, it can't be glued back together the same way. He said he sometimes wonders if he overreacted. But then he remembers the principle of it. It wasn't just the handjob. It was the fact that she hid it. She only admitted it when he had proof. If that guy hadn't called, she would have married him without ever telling him. She would have carried that secret into their marriage, and who knows what else she would have hidden. That's the thing I've learned from all these stories. Betrayal rarely happens just once. It's a pattern, it's a choice. And the people who love you won't make that choice. They'll protect your trust, not test it. Then there was the story of a woman named Sarah. She posted about her dad a few months ago, and I swear it made me want to throw my phone across the room. She was 13 when her dad had an affair and left her mom for a woman named Jane. At first, he'd still come around every weekend. He was a good dad, she said. She even kind of liked him, but then Jane got pregnant and everything changed. The visits got fewer. He missed Sarah's recitals. He missed her sister's competitions because he was busy with his new son. When Sarah was 16, Jane decided to move 10 hours away for a job. Sarah and her sister begged him not to leave. He said, "I need to prioritize my family." And he meant his new family, the one with Jane and the baby, not the one he'd abandoned. Sarah went no contact after that. She was done. Her sister stayed in touch, but Sarah couldn't do it. She didn't invite him to her high school graduation or her college graduation. She avoided family events where he might show up. She even skipped her own sister's wedding because she knew he'd be there. She didn't want to see his face. She didn't want to hear his voice. She had built a life without him. She was fine. But then, when she was 33, her dad and his family moved back to their hometown. He started calling every week. He sent messages through her sister, through her aunt. He even got his half-brother to reach out. The half-brother, the kid he'd prioritized, was now a teenager. He sent Sarah a message saying, "Why won't you give Dad a chance? He loves you." Sarah almost laughed. Love? He left her when she was a kid. He chose another woman and another life. That's not love. That's abandonment dressed up as a fresh start. Sarah ignored the messages, but her dad wouldn't stop. He started showing up at her apartment building, waiting in the parking lot. She had to leave through the back entrance. One afternoon, she came home from work and found a handwritten letter taped to her door. It was from her dad. He wrote that he was sorry, that he'd made mistakes, that he wanted to be in her life again. He included a photo of them from when she was 10 at a lake, both of them laughing. Sarah looked at that photo and felt nothing. She threw it in the trash. The worst part, she said, was that her mom kept pressuring her to reconcile. Her mom had apparently forgiven the dad years ago. She moved on, remarried, and thought Sarah should do the same. Sarah's mom said, "He's your father, he's old now. He's not going to be around forever." And Sarah said, "He wasn't around when I needed him. Why should I be around when he needs me?" Her mom didn't have an answer. Then came the update. About 2 months after the letters started, Sarah's dad got a taste of his own medicine. Jane, the affair partner, had been cheating on him not once but twice. The first time was with her best friend's husband. The second time was with a guy from her gym. Jane's secret affairs came out when the best friend's husband's wife found out and called Jane directly. There was a screaming match in a parking lot. Someone recorded it and posted it to Facebook. Sarah's dad saw it. He was devastated. He called Sarah's sister, crying, saying he didn't know what to do. He said Jane was leaving him, taking the half-brother with her. He was alone. And here's the thing, Sarah said she felt a flicker of satisfaction, but then it faded. She said she didn't enjoy his pain, but she also didn't feel sorry for him. He had chosen a woman who was capable of that. He had built his whole world on a lie, and now that lie had collapsed. She said she wasn't going to be his shoulder to cry on. She wasn't going to welcome him back with open arms. She had spent 20 years building a wall, and she wasn't about to tear it down just because he was finally hurting the way she had hurt as a kid. The last time he tried to contact her, he said, "I know I failed you, but I'm your dad. Can't we try again?" Sarah said no. She hung up. She blocked his number. She told her sister not to give him any updates about her life. She said she was at peace. She had a good job, a nice apartment, a cat, a few close friends. She had built her own family. And she didn't need a father who only showed up when he had nowhere else to go. I thought about that story a lot, about how some people don't realize what they throw away until they lose everything else, and how forgiveness isn't something you owe someone just because they share your blood. Another story that wrecked me was from a guy named Alex. He was 27, married to his husband Peter, 37. They had been together 6 years, married for 3. They had a 7-year-old son named Jack, adopted after they got married. Alex loved that kid like his own. He was his son in every way that mattered. Peter was bisexual. Alex had no issue with it. He also had no issue with Peter's ex-wife, Allison. The problem was Peter's family. They were homophobic. They always told Peter he should get back together with Allison as if his marriage to Alex wasn't real. Peter brushed it off, but Alex could tell it bothered him. They went to Peter's hometown for Jack's birthday. They wanted to celebrate with family, but Peter's mom decided it would be a great idea to invite Allison to the party. She showed up in the middle of everything. Alex was furious, but he didn't want to ruin Jack's birthday, so he focused on Jack, played with him, kept the smile on his face. Then it was time for the cake. Alex looked around for Peter and Allison. They weren't there. He went inside the house, called their names. He checked rooms. He found them in Peter's old bedroom, both of them taking off their clothes. They were about to have sex. Alex stood there for maybe 2 seconds. He could have screamed. He could have thrown something, but he didn't. He just turned around and walked back to the party. He cut the cake. He helped Jack open presents. He smiled for photos. When people started leaving, Peter and Allison finally came back downstairs. Peter pulled Alex aside and said, "Why did you cut the cake without me? That was disrespectful." Alex looked him in the eye and said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." Peter went pale. He didn't say anything. Alex took Jack and left for the hotel. He put Jack to bed, then sat in the bathroom and cried silently. The next day, they drove home. Jack didn't know what happened. Peter tried to apologize, said it was a mistake, said his family pressured him, said Allison came on to him. Alex didn't care. He packed Peter's bags and told him to leave. Peter said he would change, he would go to therapy, he would cut off his family. Alex said, "You had 6 years to cut them off. You didn't. You slept with your ex-wife on our son's birthday. There's no coming back from that." And then the really messed up part came out. After Alex filed for divorce, he found out that Allison had been 14 when she and Peter got together. Peter was 24. They had a relationship that started when she was a minor. The marriage, the divorce, the whole thing. Peter had never told Alex the truth. Allison's parents had swept it under the rug. They didn't report it. Peter had basically been a groomer and Alex had never known. He said he felt sick. He had married a man who had been with a child. He had trusted him with his own son. He called his lawyer and pushed for full custody. He got a restraining order. He changed the locks. He told Jack that Peter had done something very bad and that they were going to be safe now. Jack cried, but Alex held him and promised him a new start. The last he heard, Peter was trying to get visitation. Alex was fighting it. He said he would go to the ends of the earth to protect his son from that man. That story, man, it just kept getting worse. And it reminded me that sometimes the people you love the most are hiding the darkest parts of themselves. You think you know them, you don't. Not until the moment they show you who they really are. But not all betrayals come from husbands. Sometimes it's your own blood. I read a story from a woman, let's call her Mia, 25 at the time. She had a stepsister 2 years younger who she'd lived with since they were kids. Their parents married when Mia was 4 and her stepsister was 3. They were close, really close, until her stepsister got cancer at 14. She was sick for 2 years, then made a full recovery, but those 2 years changed everything. Mia's parents became overprotective of the sister. They asked a lot from Mia. She quit her extracurriculars, got a job to help with medical bills, drove her sister to appointments. She didn't go to dances. Any fun activity had to include her sister. Mia did most of it willingly except when she had to quit volleyball. She threw a tantrum, got punished. She figured one breakdown was pretty chill given the circumstances. She went to college, met a guy we'll call Ben. They fell in love, moved in together after graduation. They were together for 3 years. Serious. Then one day in July, Mia walked into her bedroom and saw Ben fucking her sister. She broke it off. Tears, he moved out. Her sister apologized at first, then backed off. Mia thought she was getting space. But a week later, the sister called and asked to meet up. They went to a restaurant. She told Mia that she and Ben were in love. They were just telling her as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. Mia was distraught. She left her stepsister at the restaurant, didn't pay her portion of the bill. The sister later Venmo'd her asking for the money, then she told their parents. Mia's parents called her to their house. They said how disappointed they were that she wasn't supporting her sister's relationship. They brought up the cancer. They said she went through so much. She deserves to be happy. Why can't you just let it go? Mia tried to explain that her sister had slept with her boyfriend in her bed. While they were still together, her dad said she was being dramatic. Her mom said that true family supports each other no matter what. Mia's dad even set up a dinner with her, supposedly just the two of them to talk. She went to the restaurant. He never showed. He texted later saying, "Your sister needed me. You'll understand one day." She was humiliated and hurt. That was the moment she started pulling away. She went low contact. She blocked her sister. She stopped attending family events. Her parents kept guilt-tripping her. Your sister beat cancer. She's alive. Doesn't that mean something? Mia thought, yeah, it means she's alive. It doesn't mean she gets to steal my boyfriend and expect applause. Months passed. Mia moved on. She started therapy. She realized her family had conditioned her to sacrifice everything for her sister's happiness. And she was done. Then an update came about 2 years later. Mia's stepsister and Ben got married. Mia didn't go, but she heard through a cousin that the marriage was falling apart. Ben was cheating on the stepsister with another woman, and the stepsister was devastated. She called Mia crying, begging for support. Mia said, "You took my ex, you married him, now you're surprised he's a cheater, you knew what he did to me, you walked in with your eyes wide open, I owe you nothing." She hung up. Her parents were furious. They said, "How can you be so cold? She's your sister." Mia said, "She stopped being my sister when she got on top of my boyfriend." "You stopped being my parents when you enabled it." She blocked them all. As I read that, I thought about how families can be warped by tragedy. Cancer made her sister untouchable. It made Mia's feelings invisible. But invisible doesn't mean gone. Mia built her own life far from them. She said she was happier than she'd ever been. Another story, this one from a guy named Derek, 26. He was engaged to a woman he called Jane, 27. They had clear boundaries from the start. Any sex or romantic kissing outside the relationship was a deal breaker. They both agreed. Jane went on a bachelorette party with her bridesmaids. Derek stayed home with friends, playing WoW Classic. It was a great day. But the next day, one of the bridesmaids' husbands called him. The guy said he'd seen something that made him suspect Jane had been sexual with a stripper at the party. He was vague, but when Derek pressed, the guy indicated a handjob. He said he was 100% sure. He said his wife, the bridesmaid, was feeling guilty and using him as a proxy informant. Derek went into shock. He laid in bed all night staring at the ceiling, listening to the doors and Opeth, trying not to lose his mind. The next day he called his cousin, who had also been at the party. The cousin didn't pick up. He called 5 times, red alarms. When they finally talked, the cousin said she didn't see anything, but she left early. Not helpful. Derek decided to confront Jane directly. She came over the next evening. He told her what he'd heard. Her face went white. She said it was a joke. She said maybe they were dancing and it looked like more. She said the bridesmaid had a grudge against her. Derek asked to see her phone. She hesitated, then handed it over. He found texts between Jane and the stripper, explicit ones. Arranging a meetup after the party. Derek felt his chest collapse. He asked, "Did you sleep with him?" She said no, only the handjob. She said she was drunk. It was just a stupid thing. It didn't mean anything. Derek said, "We had a boundary, a clear one. You crossed it on the night before we were supposed to get married." She cried. She begged. She said she'd do anything. He canceled the wedding. He told both families. His parents were heartbroken. Her parents called him an asshole for ruining everything over a mistake. He said, "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. This was a choice." He moved out. He lost the deposit on the venue. He lost the ring, but he said he gained clarity. He realized that if she could do that on the night of her bachelorette, what would she do on a boring Tuesday 5 years into marriage? He didn't want to find out. The last thing he heard, Jane married the stripper 6 months later. He just laughed. Some people, he said, never learn. They just find new ways to repeat the same mistakes. And he was done being a part of her learning curve. But if you think bachelorette parties bring out the worst in people, wait until you hear about dads who think they can just waltz back into your life after abandoning you. That was the next story I read, and it hit different. It was from a guy, let's call him Luke, 33 years old at the time he told it. His dad had an affair when Luke was 13. The dad left his mom and moved in with the affair partner, a woman named Jane. At first, Luke and his younger sister still visited every weekend, and Luke said his dad was actually a good dad back then, even though he never liked Jane. But when Jane got pregnant and had their son, the visits got less frequent. His dad started missing Luke's recitals, his sister's competitions, because he was busy with his new son. Luke was 16 when Jane decided to move for a new job opportunity 10 hours away. Luke and his sister begged their dad not to leave them. He said, "I need to prioritize my family." And he meant his new family. That pretty much ended the relationship for Luke. He went no contact. His sister stayed in touch, but Luke refused every call, every offer to visit. He didn't invite his dad to his high school graduation or his college graduation. He avoided family events where his dad might show up, even missing his own sister's wedding and baby showers. 20 years of no contact. Then when Luke was 33, his dad and his new family moved back to their hometown, and the dad became relentless. He sent messages. He had his family, including Luke's half-brother, contact Luke on his behalf. The half-brother said things like, "Dad is sick, Dad is old, don't you want to make peace before it's too late?" Luke ignored them all. He had built a life without his dad. He had a good job, a girlfriend, friends who actually showed up. He didn't need a man who chose to leave him, but his dad kept pushing. One day, Luke's dad showed up at his apartment unannounced. Luke wasn't home, but his girlfriend was. She didn't know who he was, so she let him in to wait. Luke came home and saw his dad sitting on his couch. He said, "You need to leave." His dad started crying, saying he made mistakes, that he loved Luke, that he wanted to make it right. Luke said, "You had 20 years to make it right. You missed my graduations, you missed my birthdays, you missed everything. And now you show up uninvited. That's not love, that's guilt." His dad said, "I was trying to be a good father to your brother. He needed me." Luke said, "I needed you too, you just didn't care." His dad left, but he didn't stop. He started parking outside Luke's workplace. He sent letters. He even called Luke's mom, asking her to convince Luke to talk. His mom told him, "He's your father, you only get one." Luke said, "I got one, he just didn't want the job." Then came the twist. A few months later, Luke got a call from his sister. She said, "You're not going to believe this. Dad's wife, Jane, cheated on him multiple times. One of the affairs was with her best friend's husband. It all came out. Jane moved out. Dad is a wreck." Luke felt nothing, no satisfaction, no pity. Just emptiness. He said, "He chose her over us. He built his whole life around her, and now she's gone. That's his karma, not mine." His dad started calling again, more desperate. He said he realized Luke was right, that he had been blind, that he wanted to rebuild. Luke said, "You can't rebuild on ashes. I've already moved on. You're a stranger to me." His dad said, "I'll never stop trying." Luke hung up. He changed his number. He moved to a different city. He told the few family members who still talked to him that if they gave his new information to his dad, he would cut them off too. It took another year, but eventually his dad stopped. Luke heard through the grapevine that his dad had moved again, this time to another state alone. His half-brother had cut contact too, blaming his dad for destroying the family. Luke thought about the irony. His dad had left 2 kids to build a new family, and now he had lost that one too. He had ended up alone, just like he deserved. Luke said he didn't hate his dad anymore. Hate takes too much energy. He just didn't care. He had a life, a good one. And he wasn't going to let a man who chose to leave him 20 years ago drag him back into drama. Some bridges are burned for a reason, and some people never learn that actions have consequences. As I read that, I thought about all the parents who think they can just come back when it's convenient, when they've been hurt themselves, and expect forgiveness. But forgiveness isn't a light switch you can flip. It's earned. And some people spend decades earning nothing. That was the last story in that batch. I closed the browser and sat in my quiet apartment thinking about my own life, my own relationships. These stories all had one thing in common: betrayal. Whether it was a fiance, a sister, a husband, or a father, someone you trusted broke that trust in the worst way. And the aftermath was always messy, painful, and sometimes freeing. I thought about how easy it is to ignore red flags when you love someone. How easy to make excuses, to hope it's a mistake, to believe they'll change. But the truth is, people show you who they are. You just have to be willing to see it. And sometimes, the only way forward is to walk away, even if it means losing everyone else in the process. I didn't have a story of my own to share that night. But I had a lesson: trust your gut, set your boundaries, and don't let anyone make you feel crazy for protecting your own heart, because when the dust settles, you're all you've got. I sat there for a while, letting the silence settle, but my phone buzzed again and I scrolled into another thread. This one was from a woman in her mid-20s, and the title hit me right in the chest. AITA for not accepting my sister's relationship with my ex despite her having cancer as a teenager. My stomach twisted. I clicked. She said her name was something like Sarah, but I'll call her that. She was 25. Her stepsister, let's call her Emily, was 23. Their parents married when Sarah was 4 and Emily was 3, so they'd grown up together, basically sisters. And they were close, really close, until Emily got cancer at 14. For 2 years, Emily was sick. Their parents became overprotective and they leaned hard on Sarah. She quit her high school volleyball team, which she loved, to get a job. The money went to Emily's medical bills. She drove Emily to appointments. She didn't go to dances. Any fun activity had to include Emily. Sarah said she did most of it willingly, except for the volleyball thing, and she threw one tantrum about that, which got her punished. But looking back, she said having one emotional breakdown was pretty chill given the circumstances. Then Sarah went to college and met a guy, Ben. They fell in love, moved in together after graduation, were together for 3 years. They were serious. Until July when Sarah walked into her bedroom and saw Ben fucking Emily. She broke it off, tears, him moving out, the whole disaster. Emily apologized at first, then backed off. Sarah thought she was giving her space. But a week later, Emily called and asked to meet up. At a restaurant, Emily told her that she and Ben were in love and were just telling Sarah as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. Sarah was distraught. She left Emily at the restaurant without paying her portion of the bill. Emily later Venmo'd her asking for the money. Then Emily told their parents. Her parents called Sarah to their house and said how disappointed they were that she wasn't supporting Emily's relationship with Ben. They brought up the cancer. They said Sarah owed Emily because of everything she'd sacrificed. Sarah said, "I sacrificed because I loved her, not so she could sleep with my boyfriend." Her dad said, "You need to get over it, they're happy." Sarah walked out. She went no contact with her whole family for a while. She got therapy. She changed her number. She moved apartments. A year later, she heard through a mutual friend that Emily and Ben had broken up. Ben had cheated on Emily with someone else. Emily was devastated. Their parents reached out to Sarah again, asking her to be there for Emily. Sarah said, "She wasn't there for me. Why should I be there for her?" Her mom said, "Because she's your sister, because she had cancer." Sarah said, "I had cancer too. No, I was the one who paid for her treatment. I drove her to chemo. I gave up my teenage years, and she repaid me by fucking my fiance. I'm done." The last update I saw, Sarah was engaged to a new guy, a good one. She said she'd learned that blood doesn't mean loyalty, and she was finally happy. I let out a breath. That story hurt. It was different from Derek's or Luke's, but the same betrayal at its core, someone you loved, someone you trusted, stabbing you in the back when you least expected it. And using cancer as a guilt trip, that was low, but my feed wasn't done. There was another one, this time from a guy 27, married to a man 10 years older. The title, WIBTA for not forgiving my husband for cheating on me with his ex-wife. I clicked again. His name, let's say Mike. He'd been with his husband, Peter, for 6 years, married for 3. They had a 7-year-old son, Jack, whom Mike had adopted after the wedding. Mike loved Jack like his own. Peter was bisexual, and his ex-wife, Allison, was still in the picture because of Peter's homophobic family, who always said Peter should get back with her. For Jack's birthday, they